Hey everyone, welcome back to the Empowered and Embodied Show. We're diving into the archives today to bring you a conversation that hits differently every time we revisit it. In this episode, we're joined by Becky Mollenkamp, business coach and founder of the Feminist Founders Movement and the Feminist Podcasters Collective, for a raw and real discussion about the difference between competence and confidence and why understanding that difference might be the key to getting unstuck. We talk about proving energy, the myth that confidence will magically appear before you're ready, and why sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose not to take the leap everyone expects you to take. If you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things but still don't feel ready, or if you're standing on the edge of a big decision wondering if fear or wisdom is holding you back, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We are so glad you're here. I am Kim, one of our co-hosts, and joined again by my other co-host,
Louise.
And our wonderful guest, Becky, is here today with us. So, Becky, let the world know a little bit more about you, and then we can dive into our conversation for today. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Becky Mollenkamp is a business coach for entrepreneurs who are ready to take the leap from small business owner to CEO without recreating the toxic traits of corporate America. Becky, we thank you for that. She is founder of the Feminist Founders Movement, host of the Feminist Founders podcast, co-host of the Messy Liberation podcast, and founder of the Feminist Podcast Collective, of which we are proud members of. Becky, thank you for all of your service to the feminist movement of the world. We are so glad that you're here with us today.
I'm excited for this conversation and getting to hang out. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so lots of like femme empowerment going on over there, Becky. What brought you to that? Is it always been something that's been a part of you to like really be in that supportive space, or has it been a journey to get where you are?
Definitely a journey. I've always been a feminist. I didn't realize until the last decade or so that I wasn't always the kind of feminist I'd want to be, or that I realize is the best kind of feminist. I don't know what language to use there to say the right kind of feminist, but basically the right kind of feminist. But so that piece, the political, the empowerment, that part of like, rah, rah, let's change the world, smash the patriarchy, that's always been there. The wanting to help others and support others has not necessarily, not that I didn't want to help others, but my background was actually journalism. So I went down that path to be a journalist. At one point, I thought I was going to be a foreign correspondent covering wars. Really glad I didn't go that path, but that was where I thought I would be. And so it really wasn't until my brother died in 2010 of a drug overdose that everything kind of changed for me. I was going through a divorce at the same time. So like my life was totally upended, and it was really an invitation for me to explore, what do I actually want in my life? And through that, realized a lot of what I want to do is actually help other people not to have their entire world fall apart before they actually start asking that question, what do I want my life to look like? And so that's what sort of brought me down the path to coaching. And eventually, like through lots of exploration and play and mistakes and failing forward, finally I'm in the place now where I'm like, this is absolutely like where I was meant to be.
I love that. Finding those moments where we transition in life, right? You mentioned several different transitions. Can either be those moments where we go, I do not have my shit together. I cannot figure this out. This feels really crunchy. Or it can be that fail forward. I'm curious with your experience, your personal experience, like which ones were those, or was it a little both?
The failing forward or not failing forward.
Like, is it so crunchy that you get stuck for a little while?
Yeah. I mean, for the longest time, I didn't even know I was stuck. Mm-hmm. I was so entrenched in the conditioning that we all get, the white supremacist patriarchal kind of conditioning, that I didn't even recognize I wasn't happy. Like I couldn't confront that. I was in this, like, I think I had to believe that the life I had been building was good, because otherwise that's really hard. And eventually it did. I couldn't do that anymore. We can only mask. I kind of call that masking. I've put on this mask of like, this is how the world expects me to show up. So I'm going to show up that way. And we can only do that, fake it till you make it, for so long before it crashes on us, right? And then we say like, oh, this doesn't feel good. So for a long time, I wasn't even really crunchy. I just was kind of going through the motions of life. And then I couldn't do anymore. And it was a slow kind of unraveling and realizing like, I'm not happy. And that was really hard to say or to come to peace with, to confront, because it was like, I was in my 30s and I'm like, so then what's it all been for? And it's really hard, especially I think, to say you're not happy when you have a life that other people tell you you should be happy in.
Yep.
A good on paper kind of life. I had a great on paper life. I mean, I was an editor at the best-selling magazine in the country. This was back when we had print magazines. I was driving a shiny red BMW. I had just built a custom home with all of the trappings. It was a gorgeous home. I didn't have children, so I had a lot of expendable income. I was married to somebody who was objectively a very good person, so it's not, the end of our marriage wasn't because of him being bad. I had everything. I could travel when I wanted, like really my life looked really great. And people would say like, wow, that's amazing. And it was very hard to finally come to this place of saying like, I know all of you are telling me this is great. And I don't know if there's something wrong with me, but it's just not great for me. And that was really, really hard. And I think a lot of, especially women, can relate to that experience. I was the good girl. I did all the right things. I did the good girl things. I got good grades, and then I went to a good school, and I got married to a good man, and I got a good job, and we got a good house, and all the good things. And they didn't make me happy. And that was really, really hard. So I think that wasn't crunchy until it became like real crunchy. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So once I finally opened up Pandora's box and could admit to myself I'm not happy, then it was really hard. And I was stuck in that place for a long time because I was like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. If you've never explored what you actually want outside of what you've been told you should want, that's really, really hard. And then other changes in my life, like figuring out what the coaching is, those kinds of things. Once I knew who I was, then those were the kinds of things where I could start to fail forward, instead of staying in that really stuck place. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, because I think that a lot of people, you touched on so much of what I hear from people, which is, and particularly women, it is that place of, but it's fine. Right. And Louise and I joke all the time about the fact that fine is another 4-letter F word. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even my favorite one. It's like my least favorite 4-letter F word. But that idea of it's fine. So why am I not fine?
I should be okay with this. Who am I to be unhappy? It's hard too, because when you're a privileged person, right? Mm-hmm. It's really challenging because there's a lot of guilt and stuff that can come up, especially if you've ever received any messaging of, you should be grateful for this. I've written in the past about weaponized gratitude and people trying to use that gratitude piece as this weapon against you. And I had a lot of that at that time of you should be grateful. What's wrong with you? You're not grateful, and it's it can be both and. I am grateful and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that messaging, right, of what's wrong with you, right? And really having that erode your self-confidence. You're already in a place where you're like, who am I? Because I got here somehow on autopilot, right? Things worked out. And like you said, the perfect paper life, right? It all looked great. Lots of boxes were checked. And yet autopilot allows us to go forward without really knowing who we are as a driver. And then when we get there and you're finally in a place where it's like, hey, I need something different over here. I'm not happy. And then society is like, well, sit down, shut up, because you should be. And then all of a sudden, that confidence, that self-worth, that little bit that you have to be able to try to make a different life or try to step out and get off autopilot, completely erased in a second.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely in that place, and it's really that's where the stickiness can come in, because you feel like it's crippling. It's debilitating to have that kind of experience, because you feel like I mean, I felt terminally stuck for a long time until I finally was just like, I think what I ended up doing, and I think a lot of people do this, is like forced change to happen, right? So self-sabotaging in ways that make change happen because it's like I can't choose change because I feel too guilty about choosing change, right? Because I should be happy, I should be grateful, all those things. And I lack the confidence to even advocate for myself. So then it's like, well, what can I do to force change to happen? And so for me, and I'm an open book, I've talked about this in the past, I cheated on my partner because it was like, that's going to force change. Right. And I, even if I wasn't consciously aware that's what I was doing, certainly with enough reflection, I know that's what it was, because I made it incredibly easy for myself to get caught too, because it was like, okay, I can't rip the Band-Aid off. I'm going to force somebody else to rip it off. And it was painful, but it was also like, there was this immediate relief of like, okay, finally, like now it has to change. Like I can't keep hiding. I can't keep stalling. I can't stay stuck. I'm going to make this change happen. And it worked. But then it puts you into this new place of like, oh boy, now what? Right? Like, okay, the change is here. And now what the hell do I do with myself? What do I do next? What can I do? And that was hard because I knew, like, I had spent almost 20 years as a professional writer. I was really good at it. I was very competent in it. And I was also really confident. I knew I was good at it. I hated it. It was soul sucking. But it was also the only thing I felt like I knew. So it was like, oh, holy shit, now what am I going to do? What comes next? This was the only skill I had. Now, how do I survive? Because now I also don't have a partner's income to help me survive. It's a scary place to be.
So you just used two words, competent and confident. And I think those get muddied a lot of the time. So I'd love to know kind of how you're using those differently.
Yeah. And I do think they get muddied a lot. I see it with my clients, and I certainly at that time with myself, because competence is largely an externally driven feeling, and confidence is largely an internally driven feeling. So competence is, I have these skills, and I know I have these skills because I have a degree that tells me I have these skills. External. I have proof that I have these skills. I've worked with clients. They've given me testimonials, blah, blah, blah. External. I know I have these skills because I have metrics that I can measure that show if I do this, then this happens. And so I can see some external data that proves I have these skills, right? That's all that external validation of, yes, you can do this thing. I had a lot of that, and that was great around writing about my experience in that realm. The confidence, though, is what comes internally. No one can they can't hand you confidence, right? So you can get those same testimonials. That might tell you, I know I have the skills to do this thing, but it may not give you the internal feeling of, and I can go tell people about it and they're going to believe me, or I can charge a lot of money for this because it's worth that. Like that's all the stuff that comes internally from your own belief. So confidence is this like internally driven belief. And I had a lot of confidence around writing. So when you have competence and confidence, you're unstoppable, right? You believe you can go into any space and command, to talk about something, to charge whatever you want, to expect that people will buy it. You'll walk into a job interview and you will nail that job interview. Or if you're self-employed, you will go in and pitch and say, yeah, it's worth this, and they're going to pay it, right? Because you have both. You've got the skills to back up the confidence. When you only have the confidence without the competence, you're a mediocre white man. We all know that guy, right? The guy who walks in, he talks a big game, but then he can't actually back it up with much. But he gets the job because he can talk a good game. He sells the client because he can talk a good game. We know those folks. And then we know the people who have the competence without the confidence. And this is unfortunately where a lot of women tend to fall, where we have endless skills. We've done the work. We've done the research. We've had the clients. We've done all the things. But what you end up being is that world's biggest kept secret, right? Because you're not talking about it because you don't feel confident enough to go out and say it. Or when you do, you're hemming and hawing and hedging and being like, well, yeah, I can do that. And yeah, I mean, I have done that. There's no like, hell yeah, I do that. And I'm the best who does it. Right. It is this like, I mean, yeah, that's a skill I have. Right. So you need both. And when you have both, you're unstoppable. And I had that. for a long time. Then suddenly I didn't have either. Because I was like, if I don't write, that's my back. I had 2 journalism degrees. I had, decades of experience of being a writer and an editor. Like I had clients that were satisfied. Like I had all the things that said, you are extremely competent in this. And because I think those 2 things, most especially, I think competence can help with confidence. I don't think it replaces it, but it can help with it. I also had a lot of confidence. Then I'm in this new world of what's next. I don't want to do that anymore. It doesn't feel good. I don't enjoy it. What else can I do? I have no other skills, so I have no competence. I don't feel confident in anything either because I don't know what I'm doing. That was really hard. I was so scary because I was like, I don't know what else I can do. So I had to start exploring and realizing, okay, eventually I got to this place of, well, I do have competence around other things. So it started with exploring that. I do have competence. I know that my coaching, I know that my journalism leads me to be a good questioner, leads me to be a good storyteller. Like I eventually, as I started to learn about coaching, I was like, oh, there's a whole lot of these skills that I possess, that I know I have. So I knew eventually I got to a place of feeling like I do have some competence. Then I went and got certified. So I had some more competence. I started to get my first couple of clients. I had more competence, but I hadn't yet cultivated a lot of confidence. And so that was challenging because it was like, I knew I wanted to do this new thing, but I wasn't making a lot of money at it. And that was also very hard. So I had to do the thing where you straddle 2 careers as you start to build a new one.
Yeah. There's part of what you shared in there about this. And I was just having this conversation earlier this week within my community of this idea of proving energy. Right. And I feel like that comes to play in what you were saying, because particularly, and I do feel it's true, particularly for women, although I have seen it with men, is this idea that we have to prove ourselves, showing up in the world to sell ourselves in some way, to prove ourselves, to prove our worth, to prove that we are competent. And that I think goes along with both competence and confidence, because it's, let me show you how competent I am. But if we step back from the need to prove, we actually have more confidence.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're feeling that need to prove, we're actually not feeling very confident. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, where does proving come into?
I love that, because I think the proving is very much tied up in where we think the external will create the internal. And so if I can just prove it and then you validate for me, you will hand me, here's your big heaping helping of confidence, because I've now validated. You proved yourself. I will now validate you. And then you're suddenly going to feel different. Now you're going to be like, now I feel confident. Thank you. Thank you for that heaping dose of confidence. And it doesn't work that way, because the confidence can't come from external. Now, that's not to say that confidence can't, and this is where they are related. This is not to say that you can't gain confidence through competence. You can, but it is when we are expecting someone else to create it for us that is where we fall short, and where I see so many people struggling. So they are waiting. Too often people are waiting to feel confident to take action, when in fact the action is what would create the confidence. So I once heard someone say, and I think this is a bit embarrassing, Dax Shepard on his podcast, but speaking of podcast, years ago, but he had heard it somewhere else. And I just am like, that is exactly it. He said, you can act your way into believing faster than you can believe your way into acting. And I just think that is just so important, because too often people are sitting, waiting. They've got the competence, but they're waiting for the confidence to magically show up so that they can begin to take action, so that they can begin to shine with this competence that they have. And we all have to learn. It's not going to magically appear. It's not going to show up. You're not going to be able to prove your way into it. You're not going to be able to beg your way into it. You're not going to be able to earn enough degrees to suddenly have that feeling. It is going to come because you start taking action before it exists. And then the actions begin to reinforce for yourself that you are competent and can have confidence in that competence. It's not going to come because somebody else told you did a great job. Because so often what people are doing is they'll think, I'll just wait. And my best friend is going to tell me I'm amazing, and that'll make me believe it. But then it doesn't. Or you'll hear a lot of advice of go read all of your testimonials. That's going to make you ready. And you go and read them all and you think that's awesome. No, I don't feel any more ready. None of the stuff that is externally driven ends up creating that internal confidence. It doesn't work because we're just waiting for it to show up, for someone else to give us the keys, to give us the permission. And we can't. We have to create it for ourselves. And generally the only way to do it, and it's not a lot of fun, is to do the thing scared, do the thing before the confidence is there, and know that you will begin to prove it to yourself. It is when you show up and you do the thing you said you were going to do that you say, I can believe myself. I can trust myself. When you do the thing you said you were going to do that was scary and you survived it, you start to believe, oh, I can be safe in doing this thing. And psychological safety is a big part of that confidence, because the confidence comes from feeling like I can do this thing and I'll be safe. That's why we can walk in the room with our shoulders back, our head high, because we're like, that's that vulnerable position, right? When your chest is forward and out, it is saying, I am so confident that you won't hurt me, that I can be in this most vulnerable position with my heart out and open for the taking. When we talk about our historical, human safety that goes back to our lizard instincts, right? This is a very vulnerable position. When a dog loves you, they'll lay on their back. They trust you, right? So when we have our chest out and open and saying, I am confident I can be safe. When we don't have that safety yet, we haven't internally felt that safety. This is how we show up in the room, right? We're showing up like this because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable. And so we create that safety by showing ourselves time and again, I can do this, by showing up for ourselves and delivering on what we said we would do. Our promises to ourselves, not to others, to ourselves. I can trust myself. And then that I can keep myself safe. Like I'm not going to put myself into harm's way. And I'm not that little, because let's be honest, a lot of this stuff is born out of trauma from when we were little. I am not that person that I was. And I'm not putting myself in those positions that created some of these fears. And if there is something that's less safe, I can protect myself now. Like, it's getting a little deep and heavy, but that is really that is the only way to do it, is through that internal. It's showing up for yourself. It is loving yourself. It is caring for yourself in those moments. It's doing everything with your own safety in mind. That's how we create that internal feeling of confidence.
Yeah. So I love this conversation because I believe the same thing, right? I talk a lot about how I believe confidence is data, right? Like we go out into the world, we take action, and it's not just the action, it's the reflection back to say, right, that's really your pebble in your confidence bucket, is that reflection piece. Hey, I really did that. Look what I really did, not what I thought I did, right? Really kind of embodying what that looks like. So I want to know from Kim and Becky, I'd love to hear, that action is terrifying. And you've already said, Becky, right? We do have to take action when we're scared. We don't have it all figured out before we have to take the next step. So what can our listeners do or think about doing when they're right on that edge? It's like, I'm really, really scared. Okay, I've just listened to Becky and Kim and Louise talk about this. It's like, and now what? How do we help people get that next step?
Well, for me, again, I am really grounded in psychological safety, emotional safety. I think safety above all things, most especially the more marginalized identities you hold, the more we have to honor safety. I think too much of the feel the fear and do it anyway stuff, which I do 100% believe in, but it doesn't always, depending on who the practitioner is, doesn't honor safety. And often that's because it's coming from people who hold a lot of privileged identities and don't necessarily have as much of that experience of the fact that what you're telling me to go and do is actually potentially dangerous, right? And not just physically dangerous, but emotionally, psychologically dangerous for me to do this thing. So we have to trust ourselves to say, I can take it small, I can do small steps, and I can honor what is safe for me. Amy Green Smith, or is it Amy Smith Green? Amy Green Smith, who's a wonderful coach who was on my podcast, Feminist Founders, talks about one way to examine this, is it safe or is it fear, is to ask myself, is this new? Because often it's just that it's new. So if you've never done it before, you don't actually have any data to say it's not safe. We don't know it's not safe, right? We just are allowing all these past things cloud what's happening now. And that's totally normal and common. So ask yourself, is this new? And if it's new, then, okay, how can I approach this? I know I'm scared because all this past stuff is showing up. So I'm going to be scared, but how can I love myself through doing this? Sometimes, I love to ask people, how can you feel resourced to do this. So like I was just working with a client, very nervous about networking. Okay. Has a lot of fear around networking, doesn't feel confident in networking, despite actually having a good deal of competence in networking. Like as we sat down and looked at the actual data, she's done it many times. There's all this proof she can do it, but internally she's not feeling it. And as we examined, there was some psychological stuff, some trauma that goes way back, totally unrelated. So that's real. We have to honor that real stuff. And then it's like, okay, we have lots of evidence that this is not that, right? So we know this is just because it's a new situation, strikes up some of that stuff from before, but you're now a much older person. You can take care of yourself. But what do you need to do to be resourced? So we came up with a list of like 5 or 6 things that were going to help. Researching before she goes in so that she feels like she's got information. She's feeling like she has she knows who she's going to be talking to. Writing a little script that in her mind, she's got the script she can use, something to fall back on if she's starting to feel like, I don't know what to say here. Enlisting a support from her husband who is going to be at the event with her to hold her hand and to like remind her she can do this, to kind of be her her cheerleader. We talked about also like, how do you feel your best in your body the next day? Getting a good night's sleep. Okay. So we're making sure you get a good night's sleep the night before this. The day of, you're going to make sure that you go and move your body because that helps you feel more confident too. If you've moved your body before you go and do it, that you pick out an outfit that makes you feel really great, right? So whatever your things are, I think thinking about one, is this new? Because if it's just that it's new, I don't have evidence that this is actually unsafe. Okay, then that's a great space to say, I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyway. Now, if you have evidence it's unsafe, don't do it, right? We're not pushing and doing things. We're putting ourselves in harm's way. But if it's just new, then I can do it. And then how can I be resourced? Get creative. Think about what are the things that will allow you to show up feeling the most resourced and ready to do the thing.
Yeah. I think just jumping off of that, because that's absolutely where I go as well, is this place of understanding the systems that we're already within. Those places that we start to feel that fear coming in, that we don't understand what that fear is about, and we blame it on ourselves, right? That's where we start to feel incompetent, not just lacking of confidence, but incompetent because the systems that are there in place have made us feel so. So having that understanding and looking at it and saying, is this a systemic reason why I'm feeling this way? Is this something real to me in terms of like, this is something that exists because of me? Did I bring this into the world? And how do I want to interact in that space? Is it because I'm being told, right, that I need to take this step? Because that's very often too, is we get to that growth edge and we say, okay, well, everybody else is taking the leap. I have to figure out how to do it. Do you? Is that right for you? Is it right to do it in this way? How well do you understand yourself first? And how well do you understand the systems that you're already operating within? Because I think those two things go a long way, the understanding of both of those, the self and the systems, to being able to take those steps in a way that feels aligned and right for us. Just because everybody's going to the networking event doesn't mean you need to go to the networking event if that is not what is going to serve you in who you are. Right? There are other ways to create business.
Yeah.
And so having that opportunity to know self and know systems, I think is where I would jump off from there.
I love that. I mean, systems, I'm a big fan of talking about like the systems. And I think another great way to think about that too, of like, is this real or is this a systemic thing? Is like that age old question of like, what would the mediocre white man do? What would a mediocre white man do here? Because that can also help to pull back some of that to say like, is this really because I'm not ready or because I lack competence or any of the things? Or is this truly just because society, the systems have put me in this place of believing I can't do it? One place this comes up a lot is like, and we hear a lot about, is around applying for jobs where men, it's very, the stats are out there. Women don't apply for a job unless they meet like 90% of the criteria, and men will apply if they meet something like 30% of the criteria, right? So when you're looking at a job saying like that, feeling that fear of like, should I do this thing? Maybe I'm not feeling confident about applying for this job. What would the mediocre white man do? Well, he would do it. He would apply. And so is that because I am not competent? Is it because of this lack of my confidence? Or is it because there are all of this systemic stuff that has made me believe I'm not allowed to unless whatever the thing is? So if a mediocre white man would do it, then you know that more than likely it is systemic stuff that's making you feel like you can't. which doesn't always solve the problem, but it definitely, like you're saying, I think it helps. Like sometimes that is for a lot of people, and there's so many ways to go at this, which is with anything. So there's no one size solution. But for some people, like for me, that's enough of an encouragement to say, well, then fuck it, I'm doing it. Right? That doesn't work for everybody. But for a lot of people, that alone is enough to say, now I'm doing it because now I'm pissed. And I love righteous rage or spite, some of these things as like motivators. Yeah, use them if they work for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, like what helps you, or what have you done to help your clients move through that space as well?
Well, you're both are talking about what I talk about too. I use different language, but it's really the same. We kind of go on this fact finding mission, right? Is like to say like I have this fear. Well, okay, so what is that fear? What are we really scared about? And going on this, like looking at the systems, looking at like the stories or the beliefs that I'm carrying into this moment, and then looking at the reality of like, is this actually not a safe space for me? Is this actually not how I want to build my business or go into my next career pivot or whatever that is? Like, but we have to go on this fact finding mission a little bit first so that we can understand like, what are we really trying to overcome? Right? Like what is that obstacle, and is it something, right, that we do want to push through, right, Becky? Is like say like just fuck that, of course I'm going to apply because I'm a mediocre white guy. Like, so there's that, but then there's also like, ooh, but does it really feel unsafe? Is that environment, do I know that's unsafe? And so it's like, no, I'm not going to put myself there to be in that space. Or that's, what are the stories I'm carrying with me in this moment that I just want to sit down? We can blow things up too. When we're feeling fear, we kind of, we're not attached to like that rational part of our brains. And so understanding that as well. And like, how do we do both, right? How do we embody that so we know what our body's telling us? And then it is what is factual, and how do we kind of navigate all of that? There's not a one size fits all, but there's really empowerment when I can say, okay, well, what is it that I actually want to do when I can put down the systems, the stories, and the beliefs that I'm bringing into this moment? And how do I want to show up so that I'm aligned with myself?
And it can change not just by person, but by moment for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? With more understanding, more information, mood, right? We started by talking about 3 water signs here. Like our emotions play into this as well, right? How we're feeling, how we're experiencing the world, and whatever else is going on in our personal lives. So, if you have the courage to take a step one time, it's okay that you don't feel that same courage the next time. Like I also want to normalize that because, Becky, as you were telling your story of it got really sticky and crunchy for a while, and then you were able to move through. And then there were other parts, right, that get sticky and crunchy for a while, and then you move through, but it's different each time.
Well, and like I work with clients. So the clients I tend to work with are at this precipice of, usually it happens somewhere around $1 million-ish in revenue or a little less. That's not hard and fast, but they're at this place of, I have been doing all the work in my business and maybe I've hired bookkeeping and, some help with social media, whatever, but they're service-based people who've been largely doing most of the service delivery themselves. And they are now at this place where they're maxed out. They cannot do that anymore. And to really grow their business, they're going to have to let a lot of that go. It means hiring. It means stepping into a fully like a CEO kind of leadership role and letting go of a lot of service delivery. It means a lot of delegating, a lot of trusting. There's a lot of things that have to happen to make that leap. And it's scary. It is scary for people. And my work with people, and something that they don't always love to hear when they are interviewing me, but I am fully honest, is not all of my clients take that leap. Some people, we work together and then we do the work and they understand once they start to like let go of just the way it has to be and start to imagine what it could be if it was aligned with their values and all of that, they see a path forward that actually looks like it wouldn't be so horrible, right? But some of them say, you know what? Now I know, like in the past I had all these stories about what it had to be or what it was going to be. Like you're talking about stories, Louise. And now that I actually have, like, I've got a plan. I know what it can be. I know it could actually be something I can do. I now have the confidence I could do it. I don't want to do it. Now that I've seen, like, I just needed to know. I needed to see it. I needed to know that I could do it. And that's actually enough for me. And now I'm okay. And I'm going to take 2 steps back instead of trying to take this giant leap forward. Because now I'm doing it from that empowered place, right? As you're talking about, I'm doing it from this place where I have confidence. I have the competence to do it. I have the confidence that I could get there. But now I'm allowed to say yes, and I don't want to. But I'm not making it from that place of just the stories I have or feeling like it's just fear holding me back or anything else. Now it is, no, I'm making this decision because this is the decision that's right for me. And so sometimes I have clients that actually get up to the edge of that thing and there's their fear place. They work through the fear and then they make that choice to say, and I don't want to go forward. And I feel okay about it. Where in the past they didn't feel okay about not going forward because it was the fear holding them back. Now it's not the fear holding them back. It is them saying, I am actively choosing a different choice for
Well,
my
they're
own
also not
safety or for
proving.
Yeah.
They're not proving. They don't have to prove, look, I can do this thing. I
Right.
can move this forward. I can go right to 8 figures or whatever that next place is that they want to go to. That's not the proof they need anymore. They're like, yeah, I worked through that. I'm good where I am. I've had a number of clients end up winding down their businesses and going back and getting jobs because, and these are $1 million plus businesses where they're like, this isn't what I want.
And
And
the shift
past,
from that external to the internal. Because once they let go of that external, the need to prove, the need to like have others try to give them the confidence, and that's once they move to like, no, I just internally am now operating from the space of I fully feel confident in myself. And that allows me the confidence to also make the choice that feels right for me. And this is what it is. Sometimes they do go forward, by the way, because they see, and they also now with that confidence, they can make a confident choice that they're doing it and doing it in a way that feels aligned for them, which is exciting instead of doing the way they think it has to be. But yeah, I like that idea of like, sometimes we also have to honor that the choice isn't the scary thing, but the difference is when you're making that choice in an empowered way that is coming from an internal decision of confidence versus that external proving or whatever. Yeah. You want to say.
Yeah. Beautiful. So this has been such an amazing conversation, and I know we could continue talking about it forever and ever, and we do because we do this all day, every day with our clients. I'd love to know what are our golden nuggets from this conversation.
I really do love that piece around just the language of proving, because I feel like that is something that will resonate with people, because I think we all know that feeling that and I feel like that also gets really to that place of where we were when we were little, where a lot of us started to develop some of the wounding and the trauma and the stuff around this that has us later doubting our confidence, that feeling of like trying to prove ourselves to people, prove our worth. Almost always with the hope that if we prove it externally, it will somehow prove it to ourselves internally. So I like that language around proving. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, for me, it was that reminder too, is that confidence comes with action. Like we can't just like somehow absorb it. We have to be in a space where we have to take some action, wherever that leads us, right? Forwards, backwards, sideways. But that's that remembering that it's just not going to happen, and that we do have to take those first small steps when it's scary and wherever that leads us. So thanks, Becky, for that reminder of like action. That's how we get unstuck. Weird, right? Like, to get unstuck, we have to take some action.
Be in motion. Becky, I love the conversation around competence as an extrinsic validation and confidence being that intrinsic validation. I just loved the clarity using those two words that get so muddied so often. And I think a lot of people are striving for that extrinsic motivation, that extrinsic validation. And I know the three of us know this, but really it's a great reminder that it's the intrinsic value that we give to ourselves that allows us to take whatever steps we are going to take next, because we're all going to take steps next. We just don't know what direction they're going to lead. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation. Becky, where can people find you in the world and how can they connect with you?
I have a Substack called Feminist Founders. So you can go and check that out, and or the podcast. If you're listening to a podcast, you're probably somebody who likes podcasts. So you can go and listen there to learn more about me and other people who are doing cool work in the world. Also, everything on social and my website, all of it's just my name, Becky Mollenkamp. And if you type it into Google and type the wrong letters, it'll still find me. It's the nice thing about having a name that most people don't. So yeah, but I'm sure you'll link to it somewhere in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah. All the show notes will be there, but we wanted you to give voice to it, because right, that giving voice, it has a different energy to it.
Becky, it was great chatting with you. Kim, as always, and you, dear listener, thanks so much for joining us on this journey where we find your spark inside, figure out what that's all about, and figure out how to put it out into the world. So thanks again. Bye, everyone. Bye for now. And that's all for this week's episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We hope today's episode has sparked something within you. Remember, we're all on this journey together. If something did resonate with you today, why not share it with a friend who might need to hear it too? You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. Your feedback not only helps others find the show, but also helps us understand what's most valuable to you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and remember, we're walking right alongside you. Thanks for being part of our community.